They told you being nice was the way. Be polite, be patient, be understanding. You gave respect before it was earned. You showed loyalty before it was proven. And somehow you ended up drained, overlooked, and wondering why the same people you helped never showed up for you. This isn't a speech about becoming cold. This is about becoming conscious. Because nice people don't get used because they're weak. They get used because they're powerful and don't know how to protect that power. Tonight we're breaking down why nice people always get used, and more importantly, how to stop it without losing your heart. Nice people move through life with their hearts open wide, like a door that never locks. They believe love is shown through availability. They believe respect comes from always being there. So they answer every call no matter the hour. They reply to every message even when they are tired. They say yes before they check their energy, their peace, their priorities. They give people full access to their time, their emotions, their resources without asking one question. First, is this safe for me? And it doesn't start because they want applause. It starts because they genuinely care. They see the good in people even when it's hidden. They believe everyone deserves understanding, so they pour and pour and pour until one day they look up and realize they're empty. You see it in real life every day. It's the friend who always listens, but when they finally need to speak, nobody picks up. It's the coworker who stays late, cleans up messes, carries a team on their back, but when promotions come, their name isn't even mentioned. It's the partner who gives everything: loyalty, patience, forgiveness, love, hoping one day it will circle back, but instead it slowly disappears. And the hardest part is nobody told them to give this much. They volunteered, they stepped forward, they filled gaps that weren't theirs to fill because being needed felt like purpose and helping felt like identity. Psychology has a name for this low boundary behavior, but you don't need a textbook to feel the weight of it. You feel it in your chest when resentment creeps in. You feel it in your body when exhaustion becomes normal. You feel it when kindness starts turning into bitterness and you don't recognize yourself anymore. Studies on interpersonal relationships show that people who don't set clear boundaries are far more likely to experience burnout, emotional fatigue, and quiet anger, not because they are weak, but because they are constantly leaking energy into places that don't refill them. Here's the part most nice people don't want to hear. Access is earned, not given. Access is a privilege, not a right. But when you hand it out freely, people stop valuing it because humans don't protect what costs them nothing. Think about it. When something is rare, we treat it carefully. When something is always available, we assume it always will be. So when you give everyone VIP access to your life, your time, your emotions, your support, they don't treat you like VIP. They treat you like general admission. Easy to step on, easy to overlook, easy to replace. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming intentional. Kindness should be selective, not automatic. Because automatic kindness teaches people they don't have to show respect, effort, or consistency to stay close to you. Being kind doesn't mean being available all the time. It doesn't mean responding instantly, fixing everything, or carrying weight that isn't yours. It means valuing yourself enough to choose who gets close and how close they get. There's power in pause, power in letting a call ring, power in saying, let me think about that, power in checking your energy before you give it away, because every yes you give to someone else is a no to something in your own life. Nice people often believe that love means sacrifice. But nobody ever told them sacrifice without balance turns into self-betrayal. Over time, you can't save everyone and still save yourself. Look at how patterns form once people realize you'll always be there. They stop showing up once they know you won't say no. They stop asking respectfully once they know you'll forgive anything. They stop trying to do better, not because they're evil, but because you taught them what you tolerate. Boundaries don't push the right people away. They reveal who was only there for convenience. And here's the truth that stings a little sometimes. People don't misuse you. They just use you the way you allow them to because you never drew the line. You never said this is where it stops. You were hoping they would notice your effort. You were hoping they would reciprocate without being asked. You were hoping they would one day say, I see you. But hope is not a strategy, and silence is not protection. The moment you start choosing who gets access, the moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace, things shift. People either rise to the level of respect or they remove themselves. And both outcomes bring clarity. You don't owe everyone your energy. You don't owe everyone your story. You don't owe everyone your time, and you definitely don't owe access to people who drain you and call it love. Real kindness starts with self-respect. It starts with knowing that your presence is valuable, your time is limited, and your energy is sacred. When you learn to close the door just enough not to shut people out, but to protect what's inside you, stop getting used and start getting respected. Not because you change who you are, but because you finally decided you matter too. Nice people carry peace like it's a crown, but the truth is, most of the time, that crown is heavy. They hate tension so much that they'll swallow their pride, swallow their truth, swallow disrespect just to keep the moment calm. They'd rather smile and nod than risk an argument. They'd rather stay quiet, let it slide, hope it passes, than face the uncomfortable moment that might shake the room or rattle someone else. And on the surface, it seems noble. They're the peacemaker, people say. They keep things smooth. But here's the thing most people don't understand. Avoiding conflict doesn't create peace. It creates permission. It teaches people around you that it's okay to overstep, to disrespect, to take without giving back. It's not about being wrong. It's about not standing up. And the world notices that gap faster than you think. When you don't correct behavior, when you don't speak your truth, people start making their own rules. They decide what's acceptable for your life because you stay silent. They assume that because you didn't respond, it's okay to push harder, take more, ask for more. That quiet energy they misread as weakness isn't weakness. It's an open invitation. And it's painful because the very people you're trying to protect your peace from are the same ones slowly eroding it. There's real research backing this up. Studies in workplace psychology show that people who avoid assertive communication, people who hold back to keep the peace, are more likely to be overlooked for leadership roles. They're more likely to be burdened with extra work. They're more likely to be taken advantage of by dominant personalities because silence is read as compliance. Think about the employee who never complains, never asks for help, never says no. Management stacks responsibilities on them like building blocks, and the world doesn't pause to notice the strain it's putting on their mind and body. The quiet person is carrying the weight of everyone else while their own voice is ignored. It's the same in relationships. When one person always compromises, always steps back, always avoids conflict, the other person gradually stops considering their feelings. They stop asking, stop noticing, stop adjusting. And the one who gives in, who swallows, who bends, slowly loses pieces of themselves. And sometimes doesn't even realize it until one day they wake up feeling invisible. Peace without respect is just silent suffering. We've all seen it. Someone who doesn't want to fight, someone who doesn't want tension, and so they stay quiet while boundaries are crossed again and again. They say yes when they want to say no. They nod when they want to speak up. They let people take liberties they shouldn't, hoping that if they just don't make waves, things will settle down. But here's the hard truth. People respect boundaries, not silence. People adjust to firmness, not compliance. Nice people often confuse avoiding conflict with love or maturity. They think keeping quiet is the moral high ground. They think walking away from confrontation is strength. But avoiding conflict without expressing limits doesn't keep peace. It creates imbalance. It tilts life in favor of the person willing to dominate the narrative. You might think you're being kind by avoiding an argument, but the world will see your silence as optional, negotiable, expendable, and then they'll act accordingly. The employee who never raises their voice might notice their workload doubling, their ideas ignored, their potential overlooked. The partner who always compromises might realize their needs aren't even on the table anymore. That friend who never calls out bad behavior might start feeling drained, used, frustrated, all because being quiet seemed easier than facing the tension of speaking up. It's not easy to confront, it's not easy to set limits, and it's definitely not easy to risk someone's anger or disappointment. But here's what people often miss. The tension you fear now is nothing compared to the resentment and exhaustion you'll feel later. Confrontation, when handled with integrity, creates clarity. It separates respect from convenience. It teaches people how to treat you without you having to beg for consideration. Think about it like this. If you never let someone know where the line is, they will push the line further and further into your life. You can't expect someone to guess where your boundaries are if you never define them. Silence doesn't communicate limits, it communicates availability. And availability is not the same as agreement, it's not the same as respect. Standing up, speaking your truth, asserting boundaries, it's not aggression, it's self-respect. It's saying, I see your behavior, I recognize it, and this is what I will accept. It's saying that your actions have consequences, that you can't step into my life unchecked. People will respect that even if they push back at first. Eventually the message is clear. Your peace matters. Your voice matters. your life matters. Nice people often avoid conflict because they want to be liked, because they fear losing relationships, because they don't want to be misunderstood. But let me tell you something, the people who value you for real will respect your limits. The people who are willing to push, exploit, and manipulate will reveal themselves fast once you stop enabling them with silence. And both outcomes are wins because one protects your energy and the other teaches you truth. You see, avoiding conflict might feel safe, but it's a trap. Every time you swallow your words, every time you ignore disrespect, you're training the people around you on what they can get away with. Every time you avoid standing up for yourself, you're losing a piece of your power, slowly but surely. And over time, that powerlessness compounds. It becomes a life where your desires, your needs, your voice take the backseat to everyone else's, and you start questioning why life feels heavy and unrewarding. Conflict is not your enemy. Discomfort is not your enemy. Silence is what becomes your enemy when it's used as a shield that hides your limits. Speaking up doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest. Setting boundaries doesn't make you mean. It makes you whole. Protecting your peace doesn't make you selfish. It makes you aware. So every time you feel that urge to swallow your truth to keep the moment calm, remember what happens when silence becomes habit. Remember how easy it is for people to take liberties, how invisible you can feel, how resentment builds quietly inside your chest. Remember that peace without respect is just suffering wearing a mask, smiling for the world while your spirit is quietly breaking. And when you finally start saying what needs to be said, when you finally set boundaries and assert yourself with clarity and calm, you will notice the shift. People will either rise to meet your respect or remove themselves from your life. And in both cases, you gain. You gain clarity, you gain peace. You gain energy back to live authentically, to love intentionally, to operate freely, because the world will never hand respect to someone who hides it behind silence. Respect is claimed, not begged for. It's earned, not assumed. Avoiding conflict to keep peace is a lesson that comes at a high price. Every time you stay quiet, you lose a little more of yourself. Every time you swallow, you teach people how little they need to give to receive your kindness. But when you stand firm, when you speak your truth, when you defend your boundaries, you teach the world that your energy is not free, your spirit is not negotiable, and your life is not a place for people to take advantage. And that is how nice people stop being used. That is how they reclaim themselves. That is how peace becomes real, grounded in respect, not hollow avoidance. Nice people walk through life believing in fairness like it's a law of nature. They think if they show up for someone, that energy will come back. They think loyalty is a two-way street. Love will be returned in equal measure. Effort will be recognized and honored. They operate on faith in people, on the simple principle that what you give will circle back. But here's the truth that shakes so many of them. They live in a world that doesn't run on intention. It runs on awareness and alignment. It runs on people who are conscious of their own integrity, their own boundaries, their own capacity to give. And it ignores those who assume the universe owes them back what they freely give. Not everyone has the same heart. Not everyone sees life through the lens of reciprocity. Some people are givers, generous with their time, their love, their wisdom, their energy. Some people are takers, ready to take whatever they can get, and when they're done, disappear without a thought. Sociologists call this the reciprocity gap. A gap where effort goes unreturned, where loyalty is exploited, where love is borrowed and never repaid. And the takers don't stop taking just because you're tired. They keep coming, expecting more, assuming your kindness is infinite. Real life shows this over and over. You mentor a friend, you open doors, you provide advice, connections, guidance, emotional support. You invest in their growth, believing that what you put in will come back in some form. And just as the scales start to balance in your mind, they vanish, they disappear. The moment they reach stability, the moment they're no longer dependent, they are gone, leaving you wondering what happened, wondering why your effort didn't come back the way you expected. It hurts because you believed, because you trusted, because your heart assumed fairness was a universal law and life proved it is not. Effort without boundaries attracts opportunists, not partners. It's a lesson that hits hard because nice people give freely. They give beyond limits. They give more than they can afford to lose. And the world sees that not as strength, but as an open door to step through. Your generosity is misread as weakness. Your willingness to help is misread as unlimited supply. And because you expect your effort to be returned automatically, you forget that not everyone shares your value system. Not everyone honors your heart. Give because you choose to, not because you expect return. That choice is revolutionary for a nice person who has been conditioned to measure self-worth through what they provide to others. Giving should come from intention, not from expectation. Give with clarity, with joy, with purpose, and make peace with the fact that what you sow may not be harvested by the same hands. Some of it will, and that's beautiful. Some of it will flow elsewhere, and that's life. But never give more than you can afford to lose. Never exhaust your soul waiting for reciprocity that may never arrive. When you give with expectation, you set yourself up for pain. You assume the world will act with fairness, and when it doesn't, you feel betrayed, disappointed, and heavy. But when you give because it's your choice, because it aligns with your values, because it feels right to lift another human being, you free yourself from the burden of expectation. You lift others without losing yourself. You provide support without trading your peace. Think about the friend who always calls on you when they need help but vanishes when you need theirs. Think about the colleague who leans on you to make their work shine but never steps up when deadlines hit. Think about the partner who takes your love for granted, assuming it will never run dry. The hurt doesn't come from their actions alone. It comes from the mismatch between your expectations and reality. You expected the world to give back what you freely gave, but the world doesn't owe it. Nice. People often confuse effort with investment. They think because they are pouring energy into someone's life, the universe will balance the scales. But effort alone, without alignment, without shared values, without boundaries, does not create loyalty or love or respect. It creates dependency, exploitation, and often silent resentment. You give your all, and if the other person isn't aware, conscious, or willing to meet you halfway, your giving becomes one-sided. That's the reciprocity gap. That's why so many nice people feel used, why so many kind souls walk away drained and invisible. Oh, it's not that giving is bad, it's not that love or loyalty or effort shouldn't be offered. The mistake is giving blindly, giving excessively, giving without a clear sense of limits, giving without a framework of what is acceptable, without a recognition of your own capacity, without a consciousness of who deserves it. Effort is precious. Your heart is precious. Protect both. Know where to put your energy, who earns your attention, and what kind of return, whether material, emotional, or spiritual, you can accept. Effort given freely becomes power when it is intentional. Power isn't in the constant pouring of energy into anyone and everyone. It's in knowing where to pour, when to pour, and when to step back. Nice people often mistake unconditional effort for unconditional love. And the truth is, love that ignores boundaries isn't love, it's martyrdom. You can't help anyone sustainably if you don't first help yourself. You can't lift others if your foundation is weak. Effort without boundaries is like building a house without a frame. It may look good at first, but it collapses under pressure. Real transformation happens when nice people start giving consciously, when they understand that not everyone operates on fairness. Not everyone values reciprocity. Not everyone sees their heart as sacred. When they learn to invest effort where it's appreciated, to align themselves with those who meet energy with energy, loyalty with loyalty, love with love. That's when giving becomes empowerment instead of depletion. That's when the scales of the reciprocity gap finally start to balance in a way that honors both hearts. Nice people have to reprogram the way they see effort. It's not a transaction, but it is a responsibility. You are responsible for your energy, for your time, for your heart. When you give without expectation, without fear, without hope of repayment, you are creating a flow that sustains you. You are giving because it's in your nature, not because you need validation. You are helping because you are aligned, not because you are indebted. And in that space, you stop being used because your giving becomes a choice, not a pattern people exploit. So when you give, let it come from clarity. Let it come from intention. Let it be generous, yes, but let it also be measured. Let it be love, but let it be protected. Let it be your choice, your voice, your power, because effort given blindly can leave the kindest hearts hollow. Effort given consciously, effort given with boundaries, effort given with self-respect turns kindness into strength, generosity into wisdom, and giving into an act that heals, not harm. And that's how the cycle breaks. That's how nice people stop being used. That's how effort becomes a source of power, not a trap. You give because you choose, not because you expect. You lift because it aligns, not because it demands return. You love because it's yours to give, not because it's owed. And in that choice, you reclaim your heart, your energy, and your life. Nice people have a way of tying their worth to being needed. It runs deep because it's often rooted in the way we were taught to love and survive. Many were raised in spaces where love felt conditional, where approval wasn't freely given but had to be earned. If I help, I'm valuable. If I fix, I belong. If I take care of someone else's mess, I'm worthy of their attention, their affection, their presence. And so, from an early age, a pattern forms. A belief that usefulness equals love, that service equals identity, that being needed equals significance. As we grow, this belief shapes the way we move in the world. We overextend ourselves because the idea of being enough as we are feels foreign. We become the rescuer, the problem solver, the shoulder people lean on, the one who is always reliable when everyone else falters. We pour our energy, our time, our attention into making others' lives smoother, more comfortable, more successful, because somewhere inside we've learned that when we give, we're worthy. And on the surface, it feels noble, it feels kind, it feels like purpose, but beneath it, there's a trap. The trap is this: when people only value you for what you provide, they don't value you when you stop providing. They don't see you when you just being, they only see you when you're doing. You start to notice it in the quiet moments, when you don't answer a call, when you don't fix a problem, when you don't offer advice or solutions. And suddenly the appreciation, the acknowledgement, the attention, the love you assumed was constant vanish. People were never invested in you. They were invested in your utility. They needed what you gave. And when you paused, when you drew a line, when you just existed without performing, they disappeared or grew distant. Clinical psychology calls this a people-pleasing tendency, often rooted in environments where approval was conditional. Children in those spaces learn survival through service. They learn that the only way to feel safe, seen, and accepted is to anticipate needs, to fix problems, to smooth tension, to serve others before themselves. That survival skill becomes a lifestyle. They carry it into adulthood, hoping that giving, overgiving, and constant usefulness will earn the love and respect they crave. They hope that being indispensable will protect them from rejection. They hope that being relied upon will make them unreplaceable. But real respect doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being valued. It comes from the quiet acknowledgement of your worth without conditions, without tasks, without favors attached. Being valued doesn't require you to exhaust yourself. Being valued doesn't require you to constantly give your time, your energy, your heart. Being valued recognizes that your existence, your presence, your voice, your choices, and your boundaries matter. And the sad truth is, many nice people don't experience that because they spend a lifetime being measured by what they can do for others, not by who they are intrinsically. So they keep giving, they keep fixing, they keep showing up, they keep bending over backward, hoping someone will see the soul beneath the service, hoping someone will say, I see you, hoping someone will choose you for you, not for what you provide, hoping someone will love you without conditions. And when that acknowledgement doesn't come, they often internalize it as rejection, as evidence that they're not enough, as confirmation that their only value is in utility. That's the cycle. It takes conscious awareness to break it. It takes courage to stop equating worth with usefulness, to pause before saying yes, to stop solving problems that aren't yours, to recognize that boundaries are not selfish, that refusing to overextend is not unkind, that saying no does not diminish your humanity. You are enough even when you say no. You are worthy even when you stop saving everyone. You are valuable even when you don't perform, even when you don't rescue, even when you just exist. Breaking free from the need to be needed mentality doesn't mean abandoning kindness or service. It doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means giving from a place of choice and alignment rather than obligation or survival instinct. It means loving without needing to earn love in return. It means stepping back and recognizing that the people who truly care will value you for your essence, not just your actions. They will respect your boundaries, appreciate your presence, and honor your existence. And those who only value you for what you provide will naturally drift away, revealing who was never meant to stay. Every time you overextend, every time you pour yourself into others to secure love or validation, you chip away at your own energy, your own identity. But when you step into the awareness that your worth is inherent, that you don't need to perform to be loved, that your voice matters even when you're not fixing, that your existence is enough, you reclaim yourself. You stop being defined by others' needs and start being defined by your values, your choices, your heart. It's a shift that feels radical for many, to stop rescuing, to stop solving, to stop bending over backward, to stop equating your value with usefulness. It feels like stepping into the unknown. There's fear in that pause, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear that people will leave. But here's the truth. The people who truly belong in your life will not leave because you stop performing for them. The people who value you for real will rise to meet your presence, not your service. And those who leave, they were never aligned with your energy to begin with. Nice people have to learn to love themselves in the absence of neediness. They have to learn that boundaries, limits, and self-respect are forms of love, not just for themselves, but for others as well. When you stop overextending, you create space for authentic connection that's rooted in mutual respect, alignment, and genuine care rather than dependency and obligation. You allow people to choose you, not take you for granted. You allow yourself to breathe, to grow, to invest in what truly matters. And that is where the power lies. The power is in realizing that your worth is inherent, that being needed is optional, and that being valued is non-negotiable. The power is in stepping off the treadmill of conditional love and recognition and walking into the life where your value is recognized for its own sake. The power is in giving consciously, loving intentionally, and existing unapologetically. Once you understand this, you stop being used. You stop overextending to prove your worth. You stop bending over backward to secure approval. You stop trying to earn love through utility. You begin to operate from a place of alignment, clarity, and self-respect. And in that space, you attract relationships and opportunities that honor you fully, without you having to compromise your essence or tie your value to how useful you are. You are enough. You are worthy. You are valuable. Not because you fix, not because you rescue, not because you are constantly needed, but because you exist, because you choose yourself, and because you recognize your own power. And the world around you will adjust accordingly. Those who respect you will rise. Those who don't will fall away. And in that truth, you finally become untouchable, unstoppable, and fully alive. Nice people often misunderstand power. They look at it and think it has to be loud, aggressive, commanding, maybe even cold. They see the people in charge are the ones who never get taken advantage of and assume that's what strength looks like. So they reject it. They shy away because they don't want to become what hurt them. They don't want to raise their voice or harden their heart or trample over others the way they feel the world has trampled. They confuse being kind with being weak, and they confuse gentleness with vulnerability. But here's the truth that changes everything. Power doesn't have to shout. Power doesn't have to intimidate. Power can be calm, grounded, unmoved. Power can be a quiet presence, a steady force that doesn't bend, doesn't waver, doesn't need constant recognition. The strongest people don't explain themselves repeatedly. They don't chase validation. They don't overgive to be accepted or prove their worth. They understand that their energy is valuable and that not everyone deserves access to it. They recognize that alignment is more important than approval. They focus on who and what resonates with their truth rather than who nods along or claps the loudest. That's the difference between living for recognition and living with integrity. That's the difference between being used and being respected. In real life, this shows up in subtle ways. Walking away without drama, saying no without guilt, allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their choices without rushing to intervene or fix everything. That's calm power. It's the friend who doesn't carry everyone else's burdens, the employee who doesn't take on the extra workload just to please the boss, the partner who sets boundaries without feeling the need to justify every decision. It's not about coldness. It's about strength anchored in self-respect. It's about knowing your worth without performing it for anyone else. The behavioral studies show that people respect consistency more than generosity. When your actions match your words, when your boundaries are clear and unwavering, when your presence communicates strength without needing constant validation, people adjust. Some step up, some step aside, and both outcomes are wins. If someone leaves because of your boundaries, that's not rejection, that's clarity. That's the world revealing who belongs in your life and who doesn't. If someone stays and respects your limits, that's alignment, partnership, trust, and respect in its purest form. The calm doesn't push. It simply exists, and the world responds accordingly. Nice people often mistake quiet power for passivity. They think if they aren't raising their voice or dominating the room, they aren't asserting themselves. But there's a difference between being passive and being intentional. Quiet power is deliberate. It's thoughtful. It doesn't react emotionally to every slight or demand. It knows when to act and when to let situations resolve themselves naturally. It understands that energy is finite and that overextending to prove strength is unnecessary. Strength shows itself in the consistency of presence, not in the volume of words. Many people go through life pouring themselves out, trying to prove worth, trying to be everything to everyone, all while assuming that kindness requires compromise of power. But when you understand that calm is powerful, you stop bending yourself into shapes you weren't meant to fit. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop over-giving to earn acceptance. You stop chasing approval from people who have no intention of respecting your limits. You simply stand firm, and in that firmness, you create space for respect to grow organically. This is why calm power is revolutionary. The world is loud, chaotic, and demanding. People are used to aggression, to spectacle dressed as strength. When you bring steady, grounded energy into the mix, it catches people off guard. It forces them to recognize boundaries, to respect consistency, to adjust their behavior or step aside. It's subtle but unshakable. It doesn't need attention, it doesn't need applause, it doesn't need to justify itself. And over time, people learn that this kind of strength cannot be manipulated, cannot be rushed, cannot be borrowed. It commands respect simply by existing. Walking away without drama is one of the most powerful acts of calm. It signals that your peace is non-negotiable. Saying no without guilt demonstrates that your choices are guided by clarity, not fear. Allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their actions teaches lessons without bitterness or resentment. Each of these acts communicates that you are in control of your life, that your boundaries are real, and that you cannot be used to fill gaps that aren't yours to fill. And because these actions are consistent, they attract people who operate from the same level of integrity. Many nice people have been taught that to be liked, to be loved, to be valued, they have to overgive, overcompensate, or overperform. But calm power rewrites that rule. Calm power doesn't need to convince anyone of its value. It doesn't perform for applause. It doesn't chase recognition. It stands rooted and unshaken, knowing that respect follows clarity and consistency, not noise and overexertion. There's a subtle elegance to calm power. It's not about dominating conversations or controlling outcomes. It's about owning yourself fully, without apology, and letting your presence communicate everything else. People learn over time to respect it because it doesn't bend under pressure. It doesn't negotiate away its boundaries, and it doesn't react impulsively to those who try to test it. Consistency becomes the language of strength, and in a world that confuses aggression with power, that consistency is revolutionary. Calm power also teaches patience. Nice people often rush to fix situations, to smooth conflicts, to bend over backward to maintain approval. But power that is calm waits. It observes. It responds when necessary and remains silent when action isn't required. It trusts that time and clarity will reveal truths, that integrity will attract alignment, and that boundaries enforced consistently will create natural respect. It doesn't force outcomes. It allows life to unfold while staying grounded. Nice people have a tendency to over-explain themselves because they fear being misunderstood or dismissed. But calm power knows that explanations are unnecessary when actions speak consistently. When your life reflects your values, when your choices reflect your limits, when your presence reflects self-respect, people understand without needing constant justification. You create trust through consistency, not through words. You create influence through grounded action, not through volume. Ultimately, realizing that power can be calm changes the way nice people move through the world. It liberates them from the cycle of overgiving, over-explaining, and overextending. It allows them to protect their energy, honor their boundaries, and command respect without ever having to raise their voice. It allows them to operate from alignment rather than approval, to live in truth rather than obligation, and to interact with the world from a place of strength rather than fear. And that is how calm power transforms lives. It shows nice people that they don't have to become loud or harsh to be respected. They don't have to overgive to be valued. They don't have to prove themselves to earn love or loyalty. Standing firm, acting consistently, protecting your energy, and letting life unfold naturally becomes the ultimate expression of strength. People adjust or they leave. And in either outcome, you win. You win because your energy is protected, your boundaries are honored, and your life is aligned with your truth. Calm power is not passive. It is active, intentional, and magnetic. It is the realization that you don't have to fight to be respected. You simply have to honor yourself. And once you step into that truth, everything else falls into place naturally. Your relationships, your work, your presence all reflect the strength of someone who knows that power isn't always loud. Sometimes power is simply steady, grounded, and unshakable. And that is a force the world cannot ignore. Being nice is not the problem. Being unaware is. You don't need to become cold to stop being used.